there's a lot of misunderstandings out there about what astrology actually is. You know, some people think it's a form of way of predicting our future based on the movement of the stars. So I thought that this would be a good idea to just kind of give you my insight into, you know, what I actually think astrology does for us. So there's actually going to be two parts to this video. This is the first part of the video, the one that you're watching right now, and this is going to just be kind of me explaining what astrology is and then what is the goal of astrology. So what I've been using astrology for in my life and what you could possibly use astrology for in your life. And then the second part of the video I'm probably going to put out either in a few days or in a week, and that's gonna actually be about me going through the astrological natal chart so that you can get an idea about how to read your own chart and what the chart is actually all about. Okay, so to get started, I'd like you to do a little exercise with me. So it's gonna be kind of a visualization exercise. So I'd like you to imagine that you're here on Earth. Well, actually, you're not here on Earth. You're just kind of floating around, and there's no Earth. It's just kind of, you're just floating around the universe. And then all of a sudden, you know, the Big Bang happens, and then there's like particles in the sky, molecules, neutrons, protons, and electrons just kind of floating around, and you kind of witness coming together of these molecules to form elements like hydrogen and helium, and ultimately hydrogen converts into the helium, and then the helium gets converted into oxygen and carbon and sulfur and phosphorus and all the other beautiful life-creating elements. And these elements are, as we all know, the basic components of life on Earth. You know, these star stuff that was just started off as electrons and protons and neutrons converted into, you know, this right here, our bodies. Astrophysicists and biologists have recently discovered that we are literally made of stardust, star stuff, out there. Now in here, right? Though we may think that we are completely separate from, you know, what's out there, and we're down here, but actually we are very, very much connected, you know. Okay. Now on to actual astrology, which began about 2,000 years ago, since the times of the Babylonians. And the reason why our personalities and our energy fields has been proven to correspond with the movements of the planets and the stars, you know, in the zodiac signs is not something that has been scientifically proven, but it has been proven through observations. So, you know, these astrologers, astrology and astronomy was once the same science, same art, same science, and with a repetition of, you know, observable human behaviors that links to the movement of the planets in the universe and the, you know, the way that the weather patterns that have been happening here on Earth and how it correlates to the movements of, you know, the planets and the sun, the stars in the universe. These are patterns that have been happening repeatedly over time, and it's kind of like, you know how psychology works. Psychology works by doing surveys, and then you get a pattern in the surveys. Same with astrology, that's how it's been happening. They've been recording the patterns of the human behavior, the things that happen on Earth, and how it's been repeatedly happening with the things in the universe. You get my point. So, I'm so in love with this candle. It's so beautiful, it smells so nice. It's actually, the smell is gardens by the sea, so I really feel like I'm at a garden by the sea, you know? So now I want to give you a little story about my first discovery of my natal chart. So I think we all know that we have a sun sign, and we seem to be calling it a star sign when it's actually a sun sign, because it's basically you know, the position of the sun in the sky, the moment that we were born. But anyways, we always knew that we have a sun sign, and I knew mine, but I did not know that I had a moon sign and Venus sign and an ascendant sign, all those things. When I first discovered that I had a moon sign, ascendant, and all those other placements, I was still a little skeptical of astrology. You know, at that time of my life, I think it was like 8 years ago, and I was a different person. You know, I was someone who didn't really believe in anything that couldn't be proven, and I was very like, I didn't think it mattered, you know, it didn't matter to me. I didn't use my intuition very much. So I was kind of like, oh, so like I had a moon sign and a sun sign, but I can't possibly be only these two things. I can't just have these two signs. Or even if I had an ascendant sign, or even if I had counted all the planets, I can't possibly only have this in my personality. You know, that was when I went to Cafe Astrology. So if you know astrology, you've probably gone to Cafe Astrology and looked up your chart. And it didn't give me very much. I still felt it did not. But when I went to other websites and actually had a look at this circular natal chart, right? I was like, oh my god, you know, there are all these beautiful lines and they're different colors, and then there's different degrees that my sun is in, and it's making trines and squares and things. And then I was like looking into astrology now, because it became something that's really personal to me, and everybody, and you know, everybody's natal chart is different, and even if it's different from another person by just 1 degree, you're completely different. You will be different. So what has astrology been doing for me in my life is, you see, astrology really tells you what you already know about yourself, but I think most importantly, it tells you things that you don't know about yourself, things that is in your unconscious. And you really think about it, you know, there's a lot of stuff there in our unconscious that, though we are born with a certain, you know, natal chart, we've been affected so much by our environment, you know, the family that we grew up in, the friends that we have, the schools that we went to, that we started to kind of change a little bit. And the things that we didn't manage to take with us while we changed, we repress it into our unconscious. And you know, that's why we have dreams. We dream about weird random stuff that we've pushed into our unconscious. And the more I looked into my unconscious, the more I realized that, you know, I was a really complicated person, and everybody is complicated. And I start to kind of, you know, peel off these layers of myself, looking deeper and deeper into myself. You see, what astrology has done for me is it's helped me to become a better person for the people around me. And I know that it's like, for some people, it's just really easy to be like, oh, I'm gonna be kind to this person, I'm gonna listen to this person's problems, and then I'll be a good person, you know, I'm gonna help others and things like that. But I don't believe that we need to be doing those things if we are not internally kind. We can be doing something kind, but we're not internally kind. And the only way that we can be internally kind is by knowing that we are not being kind to other people because we want to be kind. It's really being kind to other people just because it's good for them. You know, the moment that we think that we're going to be kind to other people because, well, I want to be kind, you know, it's like saying, I want to be a good person, you know, I think the main thing is that you're kind of lessening your ego in the process. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't have an ego, everybody has to have an ego, but you gotta lessen it a little bit, and that's what has been happening with astrology, because the moment that I dig deeper into myself, I know that I have a lot of flaws and a lot of really nasty shit, and basically I'm just trying to figure out why I have all those flaws, and they usually stem from childhood traumas. And when I figure out what my childhood traumas were, you know, I was able to fix my flaws. Not fix, but more of turn the flaws into something that can benefit other people, or turn them into something positive, because everything that's positive has a negative side, and everything that's negative has a positive side. So yeah, but it's not an easy thing to do, because to accept your own flaws is to like saying that you are flawed, like you're a glass that's been scratched and broken, and everyone is a glass that's been scratched and broken, whether we want to accept it or not. And accepting that is in a way very painful, but it's also very humbling to know that you are just a human being, and that you have to take those cracks and make it better, you know? So what happens when you finally lessen your ego is that you start to see yourself, you know, you look back at your old self, you realize how far you've come. But do we stop there? No, we're gonna take it a step further. The goal of astrology, what I've discovered, is for you to reach a sense of spiritual awakening, which ultimately gives you spiritual freedom. Now, a spiritual awakening is like most people say, oh, you know, you should just meditate and try to calm your mind, and then you'll be able to have some kind of spiritual awakening and be more spiritual and, you know, want to help other people. But in my opinion, just meditating alone without having discovered the depths of who you are and lessening your ego by fixing your flaws, meditation does not make you a more humble person in any way. And I think that to actually have a spiritual awakening, you really have to, you know, increase your humility. So you see, I think that to have less suffering is part of that spiritual awakening. And in order for you to have less suffering in your life, you have to first suffer. And you would have already suffered when you dug really deep into your subconscious. And, you know, when you're feeling like the world is getting to you, yes, maybe the world is getting to you, but part of that has to do with who you are, you know? And when you go deep into yourself and you really know who you are, you know what you're attracting, and you know why those things are happening to you in this world, and you realize that it's okay because that's who you are. You are the manifestation of everything that's happening to you. And you know, what can you do, right? That's who you were born to be. That's the inner you. And I think you can make the negative inner you more positive and attract more positive things. And when you figure that out, there's nothing to suffer in this world. You can feel sad, you can feel pain, but then you don't have to suffer. And that is the spiritual awakening that you get. And ultimately, that's gonna lead to spiritual freedom, because you don't have to feel like you're the victim, and you don't have to feel like you're suffering anymore. That is the beauty of astrology, guys. That's like the beauty of, you know, these stardust coming into our bodies and then making us embrace everything that happens in our life. So I am not by any means saying that I truly have gained spiritual freedom, because it's still a process that I'm working on, and it's probably going to be a lifelong process. And I think for everyone, you know, it could depend on how long it's going to take for you to get there. It could take your whole life, you know, you could have achieved it within a few years. Depends on how you want to interpret your idea of actually being spiritually free. But anyways, so I'm really excited to have you coming along with me on this, you know, astrological journey, and communicating about our progress into reaching that beautiful, beautiful state of just being free to float back into the dust in space, the dust that we all came from. Alright, so that's my insight into the goal of astrology. If you have anything that you want to share about, you know, what you think astrology actually means, or what astrology actually does to you, what's the goal, leave a comment below. I would love to read about any of your opinions. It's always so fascinating to talk about astrology. And yeah, in the part 2 of this video, I will be going through how to read the natal chart and all that jazz. So see you then. Bye!